All right, I think we've got a critical mass here, so I think we'll go ahead and get it kicked off. For those of you who don't know, I'm Will. I'm the CTO of Lamina1. Unfortunately, our favorite MC is currently out today at an event, so she'll just be listening in. So you'll have to deal with me. Apologize in advance. But welcome to the first Lamina1 update post Betanet. So, as many of you probably have heard, the LAMINA1 Betanet went live earlier this week. So far, it's been completely stable, working as intended. We're going to be doing at least another week of internal testing, pushing kind of updates and just making sure everything's stable and ready for you guys before we make it live. And we'll talk a little bit about that um, in just a moment. This will be one of two updates that we'll be giving in the lead up to the public launch of Betanet on the week of August 14th. And so today we're going to talk about a little bit about what this Betanet is, and kind of what the next steps are going to look like for you, the community, as well as for us. And I think actually the community did submit some really good questions about the Betanet, and I think that maybe we'll just let those questions guide the conversation. So I'll jump right in. Today's AMA is going to be really short. We're probably going to keep it to 15 minutes max. If we have any time at the end, I'll try to grab some questions from the chat. But let's go ahead and kick it off. So first question from the community, which is, I think, the one that's on many people's mind, from King Super. What exactly is the LAMINA1 Betanet? Is it a mainnet? Is it another testnet? And, it's a little bit of all of the above. It's not a mainnet in that, we do expect it to have an expiration period where it'll get shut down when we go to mainnet. But it's also not quite a testnet. If you remember, for those of you who are with us in the testnet phase, things were under very active development. There were multiple resets. And it wasn't maybe the best environment for doing long-term development and integration because you had to deal with these resets and kind of the early nature of some of the tooling around them. So Betanet is supposed to be a more mature version of that, where the economics are more accurate, or kind of it's sort of a dry net of mainnet. The economics are supposed to mirror what we'll expect at mainnet. There's a real allocation in the Genesis block defined, which we'll talk about in a bit. The network itself won't have any network resets until its expiration, probably around mainnet launch. And so what it does is it gives our partners and ourselves a stable development environment to create some of the things that I think most of the community actually cares about, because I think we're all here to jump into the experiences that are enabled by Lamina1 rather than send L1 tokens back and forth to each other. So that's kind of what Betanet is going to enable. It's going to enable some of those deeper and more interesting integrations. So that's Betanet in a nutshell. It's going to be, I think there's another question. Let me find it. Shredder656, looks like a couple people have asked this. Amy Chain, Zach Barr are asking mainnet soon. How long can we expect Betanet to run? And the current expectation is that Betanet will run until close to the end of the year. It's unclear whether or not we'll launch mainnet just before the end of the year or just after the new year. But as soon as we have that roadmap solidified, we will let you guys know, so that you have that in the back of your mind and you can start planning your own development more accurately. Next question by anyone. Can we start testing the Betanet now? Is it available? So technically, yes, if you had some coins and you knew where to point your tools and your wallet, then yeah, you could technically use it. But obviously, we don't have a faucet public right now, and so most of you won't have any coins at the moment. So no, it's not public at the moment. You can't start testing it just yet. Again, August 14th is the expected date to allow the public to begin playing with it. If there's a reason why you need to get in there sooner, I mean, you can reach out and let us know why, but I think it's safe to say that August 14th will be the earliest that you will be able to get in there and play around with it. Alchemist6 asked a really good question. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Genesis block? What's in a Genesis block? What's in the LAMINA1 block? Are there any educational components inside of it? So a Genesis block is, it's a self-descriptive name. It is kind of the foundation of the blockchain. It's that first block that defines the rules, both from an economic standpoint and an allocation standpoint, and even like defining who's in the network. It really kicks off the blockchain. And generally, what you see in the Genesis block will be a breakdown of all of the people in the network who have initially minted coins. So if you've so some of those allocations will be internal allocations that we've done. Some of them might be allocations that are kind of allocated more towards community development and you guys. So those will be broken down. They'll be completely public. So people will be able to look at the Genesis block with an Explorer eventually, see everything that's inside of it. And this Genesis block is supposed to be as close to the mainnet Genesis block as we could get at this point in time, so that we can, again, do a dry run of some of the mainnet economics and help inform, so we can test and help inform the release of a token economic paper soon. What's in the LAMINA1 block outside of those economic and kind of chain configuration parameters? There's also, messaging. So we can put a message within the Genesis block. There's a Neil Stephenson quote in there at the moment, which you can try to find if you're skilled enough. And then mainnet will probably have a much more extensive kind of internal messaging portion to it. Anon asked, how is early performance testing going? Is there a BetaNet Explorer we can check out to see for ourselves? So currently there is not a live BetaNet Explorer for the PNX chain that you would be able to see for yourself. We do have a C-chain BetaNet Explorer live, and we can look at making that public for you guys. Currently it's kind of hidden. But early performance testing is going great. Everything's working as expected. We haven't had any major hiccups so far, which is always a good thing to see after a new network launch. So yeah, we're confident everything is going good. And yeah, well, I think we'll look to see if we can at least get you the C-Chain Explorer relatively soon, and maybe you can follow along with some of the test internal transactions we've been making. PNX chain explorers have been something, if you've been here for a while, you'll know we haven't had them in the past for the test net. Now that we're in BetaNet, we have some partners who are who've developed these exact same PNX chain explorers in the past, and we're going to be working with them to see if we can get them live for our network as well, so we can focus more on building the interesting stuff on top of the chain rather than more tools for the chain itself. Focal Killen asks, will BetaNet addresses carry over to the LAMINA1 mainnet? What about tokens or token value? It's a good question. BetaNet addresses themselves, it's a complicated answer. You can theoretically keep your private keys when you move between these networks and reuse them in the new network. Your address may change slightly. So the PNX chain addresses generally have what's called a human readable portion in the front of them, which kind of lets you know which network they belong to. Those addresses themselves will change. I think your C-chain address will stay the same between networks, but the tokens that you get in BetaNet generally will not transfer over to mainnet. It sounds like we had someone try to jump in. So no, everything that you build in BetaNet will not transfer over to mainnet directly. Now, we might take some of the activity and some of the things we learned from BetaNet and try to address it when we do beta mainnet and we figure out those allocations. But currently, no, there's no expectation that any of the value, or I should say, the exact data that you hold on chain will move over to mainnet. Ed Keys asks, I'm intrigued by the mention of locking down a betanet address. Does that mean there is some sort of ENS-like scheme coming? So Ed Keys has a crystal ball. Yes, it does mean that we are looking at deploying an ENS-like scheme in the very near future. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. I think a lot of the people here are more interested in, and it's definitely been, one of our theses and guiding philosophies is that, the users, for the most part, especially mainstream users, don't really care to know that the blockchain is there. They just want to, participate and use the experiences that Lamina1 enables, and they don't want to deal with the friction and the heavy lift that dealing with blockchain generally entails. So part of that is, hopefully communicating with each other via real names rather than wallet addresses, which has always been a dream of mine. Being in the space for about 7 years is, I think for a mainstream audience to really get behind this and start using this, they need to be able to establish an identity and communicate and transact with each other as identities and as individuals rather than as esoteric and unreadable wallet addresses. So that's part of what ENS is trying to enable, or our version of ENS is going to try to enable. And it's only the beginning of much richer identity functionality that will be rolling out in the months after. So yeah, that's part of the roadmap and leads a good segue into Adim's question, is there a roadmap? And what's coming next to beta after the launch? There is a roadmap, and it's currently being fleshed out internally. We're presenting it to early access partners to get feedback, to help inform it and fine tune it. We can look at making portions of it public to you guys, but I think in general, it's safe to say that it's got a lot of exciting stuff lined up for every month. And I think that one of the things you'll notice, migrating to betanet from testnet, is we're taking we get to migrate away from, maintaining and building a chain and more towards building community-focused products and features on top of that chain. So, I think the goal is maybe every month or so to be releasing something major to you guys that you guys can use and play around with. But yeah, I think once we get that finalized and we have a little bit more detail, we can hint at a little what those features might look like. I think the last question is Akalanka. Aoki asks, will testnet still run after the launch of betanet? Can I still try it out? So testnet will technically continue operating. I think we're going to give about a 2-week grace period before we shut down the last testnet. So yeah, if you want to try it out, you're still welcome to. I think the faucet should still be live. Just realize that in, I guess, less than 2 weeks now, we will probably be shutting it down unless someone gives us, a really compelling reason why they need it live for a little bit longer. But yeah, so the plan will be to shut it down probably within 10 days. So I think that's it for the pre-submitted questions. I'll check the live chat in just a moment to see if there are any submitted questions. Just some announcements. Next week, we'll be onboarding the L1 Early Access Program, the betanet validators, and some select L1 community members, finalizing some of that documentation for you guys and doing, finishing some of this early testing. So that's kind of what's on the docket for us internally next week. The public launch of Hub and betanet will be the week of August 14th. And then finally, all testnet quests are going to go down on Zeely today at 12 p.m. PST, which I think is in about 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So if you had any quests that you wanted to finish, now's the time to get those submitted. I don't know if there was a code for this week. If there was, then could someone in the chat submit it at this time? But if not, I think that's it. Okay, no code for this week. Yeah, so I think we've done all of the quests for testnet. We are looking at what quests might look like for betanet moving forward, and we'll keep you guys updated there. Trying to see if there's any major questions in the chat. All right, no questions. Ed Keys, will the betanet phase include stuff like a GitHub? Yes, 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 yes. I can't guarantee it will be open sourced live to the public by the time we make the network public, but yes, the GitHub repo will be made public and open sourced by the end of betanet. So great, great question. We're working on doing that right now. That'll also make our lives quite a bit easier because referencing these private repos when doing development is a bit of a pain, trying to make these releases. One more minute for any additional questions. Otherwise, I think I'll let us all go enjoy our weekends.
Alchemist looks like he's gonna have one.
Oh,
Oh,
thanks,
just
Will.
wants to thank you. Hey, Will, good job handling this this AMA.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was great to have you all here. Always appreciate you coming. Welcome to BetaNet, and we'll see you all next week.